The simulation chamber of the Galactic Naval Academy was a vault of silent, expectant darkness. On the tiered observation platform, the luminescent forms of a dozen senior cadets and 2 instructors watched the central holographic display. The scenario was a standard tactical exercise, a hostage rescue in a dense, rain-slicked urban sprawl. The operative tasked was a single entity, currently denoted as Unit Gamma 7. The unit was human. Initiating playback of the Alpha's 3 engagement, the primary instructor, a tall being with scales the color of tarnished silver, stated. His voice was a dry rustle in the quiet. This is the mission that prompted the inquiry. You asked how deadly one human Marine could be. The data logs from this operation were unsettling. We shall see the truth. The hologram bloomed into light and sound. The city was a labyrinth of neon and shadow. Unit Gamma 7 moved through it not with the sleek, predatory grace of a Varian shock trooper, nor the hovering, precise telekinesis of a Melani Guardian. The human moved with a terrible economical purpose. It was not fast, but it was never where the simulated enemy fire landed. It used alleyways, drainage pipes, and the blinding glare of holographic advertisements not as cover, but as tools. Cadets watched as the human approached the first hostile position. 2 simulated rebels guarded a courtyard. The human did not engage. It severed a power conduit overhead, plunging the area into darkness save for the sizzling wire. In the 3 seconds of confusion, it was already inside the building, leaving the guards untouched but irrelevant. A bypass. A cadet from a species of elegant, long-limbed engineers whispered. Tactically sound. The instructor said nothing. Inside, the scenario escalated. Hostiles filled the corridors. The human's weapon, a standard-issue pulse rifle, reported with short, controlled bursts. Each burst coincided with a change in position. It fired from a doorway, then a window, then a service hatch, never repeating. It used sonic grenades not to stun, but to collapse weak ceiling sections, blocking pursuing forces. It turned the environment into a weapon dot, then came the first pivotal moment. Cornered in a refinery control room by 5 hostiles, the human's rifle powered down, its energy cell spent. The observing cadets leaned forward. This was the end. Melee combat against 5 was a statistical impossibility. Unit Gamma 7 dropped the rifle. It did not draw its sidearm. As the first hostile lunged, the human sidestepped, grabbed the extended arm, and used the attacker's momentum to hurl him into a bank of control consoles. Sparks erupted. The second fell to a sharp, targeted strike to a vulnerable nerve cluster, a location the Academy's own databases had listed as only moderately effective. The human strike, however, was delivered with a specific angle and force that rendered the target immediately inert. The remaining 3 fell in a sequence of movements that seemed less like combat and more like a grim, practiced dance. A maintenance wrench was seized from the floor and used once, effectively. A chokehold was applied with such precise pressure that consciousness was lost in under 4 seconds. The final hostile was disarmed. With a brutal twist of his own weapon, subdued. The chamber was silent. The human had not killed a single simulated foe in the melee. It had rendered them all incapable of continuing the fight with a chilling medical precision. It avoided lethal force, a young cadet stammered. That is a positive indicator, is it not? Restraint? The silver-scaled instructor finally turned his gaze from the hologram. Observe the timestamps and the biometric feed from Unit Gamma 7. The data stream appeared beside the main display. The entire engagement had lasted 27 seconds. The human's heart rate had peaked at a modest increase of 15%. Respiration remained steady. There was no spike in adrenaline analogs, no neural flare of combat euphoria or fear. The biological readout was as flat as that of a cadet solving a complex navigation problem. It was not restraint, the instructor said, the rustle of his voice lower. It was efficiency. Lethal force was simply not the most efficient tool in that specific microsecond of the engagement. It calculated minimal necessary force, applied it, and moved on. This is the foundation of their doctrine. Not rage, not glory. Applied physics, biology, and psychology. The hologram continued. The human reached the hostage-holding area. The scenario dictated 8 high-value hostiles guarding 3 captives. Standard doctrine called for a delayed assault, waiting for a distraction or support. Unit Gamma 7 did not wait. It entered through the ventilation system, dropping into the room's center. What followed was not a firefight. It was a systemic dismantling. The human sidearm, now drawn, fired 8 times. Each shot was different. One was a grazing shot to a weapon hand. Another was a kinetic impact to a knee joint. A third was a deliberately ricocheting round that struck a hostile's helmet sensor array, blinding him with feedback. Each shot was a problem solved, a weapon neutralized, a tactical option removed from the enemy. Not one was immediately fatal. In the ensuing confusion, the human moved to the hostages, shielding them with its own body while using a captured shield generator. It directed the hostages to a pre-scouted exit with terse, calm commands. Then it turned back. The 8 hostiles were wounded, disoriented, but still a threat. The human surveyed them for 2 full seconds. Then it moved again. With deliberate, unhesitating strikes, it targeted specific equipment on each hostile's uniform: communication jammers, grenade primers, power packs for exosuits. With a series of precise gestures, it triggered localized overloads. Small, controlled explosions erupted, disabling the equipment and incapacitating the hostiles through concussive shock or minor burns. The simulation ended. Mission parameters: hostages rescued, all hostile forces neutralized. 0 confirmed fatalities. The mission timer was 43% faster than the Academy record. The observation deck was utterly still. The cadets stared at the frozen hologram, the human figure standing amid the simulated ruin it had orchestrated. This, the instructor said, is where the review board's questions began. A flawless, non-lethal resolution. But the biometric and cognitive data, it was anomalous. A second hologram appeared, this one a complex web of neural activity and stress hormones. Compare a Varian elite in combat. A graph showed wild, passionate peaks and valleys of neural activity. Or a Milani defender. This graph showed a serene, focused peak of telekinetic output. This is Unit Gamma 7, from the start of the simulation to its conclusion. The graph was a nearly straight line. A slight upward trend, like a student gradually understanding a difficult lesson. Where is the fear? The anger? The instinct for self-preservation? A cadet asked, her voice small. That is the first part of the truth, the instructor said. The human was not suppressing these instincts. They were not present to suppress. They have been refined away, trained into obsolescence. What you see is not a warrior in the emotional sense. It is a conscious weapon, a decision-making engine where morality, empathy, and fear are variables in a tactical equation, not imperatives. He let that hang in the air. You wish to know how deadly it was. The Alpha's 3 simulation does not show that. It shows the mechanism. To see the deadly potential, you must see what happens when the equation does call for maximum force. A new log loaded. This is data from the defense of the Outer Rim Waystation Theta. It is not a simulation. It is a combat record. The hologram shifted to a stark, asteroid-based facility. Alarms blared. Scuttling, chitinous forms of the Cathari swarm filled the corridors. They were a known enemy, relentless and numberless. The record was from a security scanner, Shaky and fragmented Dot, a figure in scarred marine armor, held a narrow corridor leading to the station's primary reactor. It was the same human, Unit Gamma 7. It had a heavy rifle in one hand, a monomolecular blade in the other. What followed was not tactics. It was thermodynamics. Dot, the human, moved its position every 3.2 seconds, exactly. Its rifle fired in patterns that seemed random, but created intersecting fields of fire that funneled the swarm into predetermined kill zones where pre-placed explosives detonated. When the swarm adapted and overflowed, the human used the blade. The strikes were not defensive. They were anatomical studies in motion. Each lunge severed a primary locomotive limb, pierced a central nerve cluster, or severed a sensory stalk. It did not kill the Cathari immediately. It turned them into obstacles, into writhing, shrieking barricades that impeded their brethren. The human used everything. A fallen coolant pipe became a makeshift flamethrower. A ruptured electrical panel was lured into with a feint, electrocuting a dozen swarm forms. It even used the bodies of fallen Cathari as temporary shields. For 11 minutes and 17 seconds, it held the corridor. The biometric feed, displayed alongside, remained that steady, relentless line. No panic. No fury. Just a heart and mind operating at optimal efficiency amidst a hell of its own making. When reinforcements arrived, they found a corridor piled high with disabled and expiring Cathari forms, and a single human marine leaning against a wall, methodically cleaning its blade. Its armor was breached in 7 places. It had lost approximately 18% of its blood volume. Its vitals, while depressed, were stable. The final tally: 1 Marine. Over 380 Cathari combat forms neutralized. The reactor was secure.